real quick while we go. Okay, so you've done a bunch of diets like probably most people. Jennifer, now you next.
Okay, I'll be spending Christmas here in Knoxville, and we had hoped to try to go to New York, but just isn't going to work out. So not for Christmas per se, but right before Christmas. And as far as previous diets, I would say, you know, I date back to the old grapefruit diet, but you know, more realistically, I think in more recent years, it's just mainly been trying to go low carb and just getting really tired of that. And I did a short stint with Weight Watchers, but not for very long. That's about it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you, Kathy. I put a prompt for you to unmute there. There you go.
I'm going to spend half the day in Charlotte, North Carolina, and half the day in Knoxville.
Nice.
Yeah. We've got to pick up a granddaughter on half of the in the afternoon of Christmas. So, but I have been on several. One of the diets I was on, it was eat only when you were hungry. Yeah. And then I did one through church, and then I've done the low carb, and then I did Optavia, which is a profile diet where you do 5 of their fuelings and 1 lean and green, which was about 800 to 900 calories a day. I lost a lot of weight on it. It tore my stomach up, and so I'm now off of that and working with you, and I've put on about half of the weight back on. But that is great because most people put all the weight plus back after they get off of a profile diet.
Yep, absolutely. I'll be splitting Christmas too in Nashville and Memphis, so we share that. All right, Pam, I just gave you a prompt to unmute. And
okay.
Yep, there you go. Yep.
I'm going to be here in Knoxville this Christmas. That's where most of my family is. So luckily I don't have to go anywhere. The diets I've done in the past, I'm glad to hear somebody else say the grapefruit diet, because I did that back in like high school. And the only other one that came to mind that I've ever done was the one, I don't know if y'all remember the lady that was in a plane crash just outside of Nashville.
You did the remnant diet way down?
Whatever it was called. I lasted 2 weeks. And I thought the things that she suggested I do were just a little bit cuckoo. So I lasted 2 weeks and didn't even do it. So I really haven't done a whole lot of diets.
Yeah. You know, they've just made a documentary on that.
I didn't know that, but I probably enjoy seeing it.
They made an HBO. That neighborhood is exactly where my wife is from. They do a biopic on one of the high school students there that went to high school with my wife. It was crazy.
Wow. Well, one thing that I thought was so crazy, like, it's fine, go out and eat as much as you want to, but then take the salt and pour it on half your food so you can't eat it. I thought that is not being a good steward of my money. I just thought that is just dumb. And so I did not stick with that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Well, Jesus says to be salt and light, but you know.
Yeah, yes, but I don't think, or she also said to, like, when you order your food, just go ahead and tell the waiter to put half of it in a takeout box.
Yeah.
And that, I don't object to that, but there was no even recommendation over what sort of food to be eating.
Yeah.
That I remember.
Yeah, it was just portion control, basically. All right, that's great. You're my first way down client. Hey, how you doing this morning?
Hey.
Hey. Okay, where will you be doing Christmas?
I'll be here in Murrayville, and done Weight Watchers twice and keto.
Okay. All right. Murrayville. Yeah, we got a lot of people in Knoxville this year. All right, and Amy Cree. Gave you a prompt there, Amy.
Hello, I'm on the treadmill. It's kind of loud, so if there's some
Nice.
squeaking, that's what it is.
Way to go.
I'm in Knoxville for Christmas, and I haven't done anything that hasn't been mentioned more recently, the low carb keto, and I did
Yeah.
Weight Watchers after my son was born.
Yeah. All right. All right. Okay. So that's going to be a good sort of premise for what we're going to jump into today. Today, I'm really going over some foundational things, but a little bit of backstory on my end. I've just finished the content of a client handbook. Don't get overwhelmed by this, but it's 50 pages of like practical content. And over the course of you going through the program, I'll be able to reference that for you to kind of take like a section at a time to kind of dig into some of the stuff. It'll be like a supplement to coaching. So some of that is just like on my end, clarifying what exactly do our clients need to know to be successful while they're working with us? And probably more importantly, what exactly do our clients need to know they need to be doing when they stop working with us, whether that's in 6 months, a year, or 6 years. So I have goals for you in your time with me, which I consider short-term goals. And then I also have long-term goals for you. My goal is that you learn more from this experience that translates to your long-term than you learn from Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig or the Grapefruit Diet. So now we'll do the pop quiz. Everybody go ahead, pull open your chat, and I want you to answer, what are the macronutrients? Should take you about 2-3 seconds to type, maybe a little more. All right. Okay, and see, has everybody answered? Pam, I think I haven't seen your answer yet.
I'm working,
Okay. Not trying to call you out.
but now I typed it and I just hit send.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, Pam, you get a gold star. Yeah, I'll give a gold star for that. So protein, fats, carbs, those are your macronutrients. There are two that I kind of call faux macronutrients. It's fiber and alcohol. Fiber, because fiber is a carb, but we just don't have the molecule to break it down. So it just aids us in digestion, and it is important in your diet. And then alcohol, because it gives you calories, but it doesn't give you any nutrition beyond just the calories. Okay, so yeah, protein, fats, carbs, and understanding those three macronutrients is very important for your long-term health. Okay, here's going to be a little tougher one. What are your current caloric needs as calculated by the Harris-Benedict equation? This is a number that I've probably run for all of you. Well, I know I've run for all of you. And I've shown it to you. You don't have to be right on the dot. But I think long-term, for you to be successful, you need to know basically how much energy your body needs to thrive from a day-to-day basis. So go ahead, I'll type out your number, and then I'll tell you 3, 2, 1, and or you can just drop it in the chat now. Actually, that's fine. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to check. These look a little bit low. Pam, you might be on with that 1600. Renee, yours I think is not 1800. I think it's 22.
Okay.
About. So, and again, I usually think sometimes it's a slight overestimate, but it's only very slight. And usually I actually underreport. So, you do an activity factor. So it's like light exercise 1 to 2 times a week is usually what I put for y'all. But several of y'all are working out, 3 to 4 times a week. So really it could be a little bit higher. Okay, so on this one, Jennifer, I think yours is probably about 22, 23. Kim, I think yours, depending on your activity factor, is either maybe 22 or it might be as high as 24. And then when you start doing activity, it might be up in the 26s. So take that number that you just put, and I'll actually have that be your homework. Google that Harris-Benedict calculator and just put in your stats and then see how close it is to what you said. I think most of y'all slightly underestimated, but maybe not by a ton. Okay, here's the fun one. What percentage of people maintain the weight loss they achieve after a year?
Say again.
What percentage of people maintain the weight loss they achieve after 1 year? So they diet, lose 20 pounds. A year later, how much people keep that 20 pounds off? All right. Okay, so we're getting 5, 10, 20, and 30. You know, the number that I sort of stick with is 5 to 10%. But it gets a little bit gray. Different studies say different things, but at 2 years, it's not higher than 10%. It is no higher than 10% after 2 years. So maybe around 1 year, people have kind of held on to it. But the bottom line is my basic assumption for most of my clients is that what they've done in the past did not work. And my basic assumption is that we've got kind of a tough job as coaches to figure out something that does work. But the landscape is bleak. So the success rates of the thing that you guys are going out to accomplish is low. And that's just the basic assumption that I start everything with. So actually, one thing that I'm getting more confident in is that people, I'm okay, you know, I want to facilitate a 25-pound fat loss result for every one of my clients, but I'm starting to feel really good about clients that are feeling better, that their habits are way better. You know, maybe their body's down 10%, but you know, if that's where it stops and they feel better and they've learned a lot, I feel really, really great about that, because you just got to compare it to what are the other options. You know, a lot of times I'll have someone start coaching and they're eating 1,500 calories and they're not losing weight, and they end coaching eating 2,500 calories, down 15 pounds. That's a really, really good result. Not just in the short term, it's a pretty good result in the short term, but in the long term, they're so much less likely to mess up. They've got so much more margin for error now that they're eating almost double and maintaining their weight. Now, I will say the thing that's really discouraging is when someone leaves coaching, they say, well, I'm just going to do, you know, Whole30, you know, whatever it is. All like Whole30 is a fine way to eat, but but don't forget the things that you've learned and practiced for several months. But sometimes that does happen. Okay, so today I want to talk a little bit about life principles of nutrition. You know, you guys have just listed all the diets that y'all have done. There are new diets every year. There's a new diet. The grapefruit diet might be coming back in style here soon. I'm sure it will. You know, they're on a 20-year cycle. Also, it's a lot of work to learn how to eat correctly. And one of the big ways that it's worked is you kind of got to track your nutrition and figure out what you're eating. So all of y'all can resonate with that. However, I think one of the things I can do as a coach is I can help you learn to ignore the hype and stay focused on the simple principles, which are going to give you long-term results. So, you know, as much as what I want to do is positive and teaching you maybe new skills and new ways to approach it, I also want to help you stop from making some of the same mistakes. So here are like the 5, I think, most fundamental principles of nutrition. And I think these are maybe in order. I might argue that they're in order. Number 1, consistent meal structure. We've talked a lot about this. We talked about this last week as well. For almost everyone that I work with, the first step they do now is, hey, establish a consistent meal structure that you can repeat, that has some order to it, that helps you eat mindfully. Number 2 is to eat enough. You've got to eat enough both to establish and maintain your lean mass, and then also in time to contribute to the fat loss that you want to achieve. So those are different constraints. Those are different goals. Establishing lean mass and losing fat are different goals. You should learn to eat enough for both of those goals. Number 3, eat 85 to 90% whole foods. So that's a goal that I want to help y'all drive towards, to increase your whole food consumption. All sorts of research shows that the more whole foods people eat, the less likely they are to gain weight or to gain weight back. Number 4, the one that everybody loves me for, is to consume adequate protein. And number 5, I want you to understand that dieting is a stressor. Dieting is stressful on your body. Okay, are there any questions on those 5 principles, or are any of those 5 principles, do any of them seem new?
Nope.
Nope. Okay, good. That's good. I hope none of them seem new. Anybody want to give themselves like a grade? Which one do you think you do well? Which one are you struggling with? 1 through 5. Like, tell me a little bit about that. Just tell me how y'all relate to this list. Because if you do coaching and you don't lose 10% of your body weight or get 30 pounds off, you don't achieve that, but you learn to practice all 5 of these long term, that's really, really phenomenal. So tell me, like,
I did great.
Yeah.
I did great being consistent Monday through Friday. I'm horrible on weekends in that I still struggle to eat enough food on the weekends. And
yeah.
I
saw a great meme. It was like a little a toy jet plane, and it was like my diet during the week, and it goes down the runway and it takes off and says my diet on the weekend, and it got caught by the wind and just slams into the ground. Okay, so you do pretty good. I think, Kim, we're still working on adequate protein. You have definitely increased your whole food consumption. You've decreased the amount you eat out tremendously. You understand dieting as a stressor, even though you've had a pretty good weight loss result. You've spent most of your time with me not dieting. So I would give you like a pretty good grade on most of these. It's pretty much 1 and 2 that are, consistently inconsistent. So yeah. Anybody else see one that they struggle with or one that they do well on?
I think I struggle with the adequate protein, and I think it connects right back to number 1 with my consistent meal structure, because I don't know. I love to cook, but I don't like to plan so far ahead, and I think I need to change that.
Yeah, that's why 1 is number 1, because if you're inconsistent on the meal structure, almost nothing else can come from it. But if you can learn to be consistent on the meal structure, y'all know the people that I give the most diet breaks to, where they don't have to track their food. So people that are most consistent with what they eat, I say, hey, you're doing great. Take the week off. You're going to be fine. But when I've got people that are varying 500, 600 calories day to day, or they're missing meals, like, that's a huge thing. So yeah, Pam, for you, the protein going down is a result downstream of the consistent meal structure.
I would have to say I do. The one I struggle on is I'm consistent with my meal structure unless I'm really busy.
Yeah. And that is where that's the key.
Yeah. It gets me every single time. If I get really busy, then I'm not consistent on my meal structure.
Yeah. And so look here, guys, when you got a death in the family, I get it. You're not going to be consistent with your meal structure. You're not going to plan ahead. But I try to make a distinction between death in the family, car accident, and dog peed on the carpet. And it's not to poo-poo the fact that life is busy, but it's just like you got to recognize it. Yeah, we have crazy lives. We live like crazy people in the modern world, and it also is possible to learn to be consistent. So
one thing that's helped me with the protein is I set an alarm on my phone, and it's set for 4 o'clock every day. That's a reminder that when it goes off, it's time to fix my shake. And I can prep the whey and the peanut butter powder. And sometimes I even just put the whole thing in a jar and then mix it up.
Yeah.
And that if I don't do that, I don't get my protein in.
Yeah.
If I hit snooze on it and make sure I don't just turn it off, then I do follow through. But if I hit stop on that alarm, I leave it.
Interesting. That's great. Okay, that's good to know. And so one of the things that we can do for that, Kim, and I know you have to go in a second, is let's work on getting more protein from your whole foods and change the way you eat that way, so that you're not so reliant on the shake. Now, I do a shake almost every day. 1, because my protein number is really, really high. But 2, it does make it a little bit easier. But I'm still getting like 185 grams or more of protein a day from whole foods. So I'm getting a lot there. So that is one thing that we can do long term. It's more complicated, but it also, if you actually learn to do that, it's going to be more secure. So
Andrew, can I
Okay.
ask a question to you?
Yeah, yes, please
If you're
do.
eating that much protein from your whole foods, could you just tell me like what your daily protein intake might be? I mean, are you chicken, fish, steak? What are
Yeah.
you eating?
Yeah, so I do 2 eggs in the morning with like 2 egg whites, so that's about 100 grams of egg whites. So right there, that's 25 grams of protein. I'll do overnight oats in the morning with a little bit of peanut butter, a little bit of like a skim milk, or I'll put a little bit of yogurt in the oats, and that's another 25 grams there, right there.
Okay.
Now that's a big serving of oats. It's like 75 grams of carbs to get 25 grams of protein. So it's not super high protein, but again, it all adds up when I'm going that high. Then for lunch, I'll do 170 grams of a lean meat. I'll do maybe a little bit of yogurt for like a post-dinner snack, and then dinner I'll do fish or beans and a protein too there. So for lunch, I'll either do like beans or lentils plus the protein, and then dinner, is like a what am I doing for dinner? Ground beef and a pasta, or like we're doing cod tonight, but we don't do fish that often. So I'll post like a whole day of what I'm eating, but I'm always trying to get just a little bit more protein there, and then I'm prioritizing my meal around the proteins for lunch and dinner.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay. So, the simplest thing for Pam is like just add a little bit of egg whites to your breakfast, and then slightly increase the portion of your meat, and you'll probably get 20, 25 more grams just by doing that.
Okay.
Okay, so number 1, yeah, consistent meal structure. We talked about this. This goes to you, Pam. People love the idea of mindful eating, right? Doesn't that sound so nice? And I think we intuitively recognize mindful eating is really good. Well, I would add that like it's hard to eat mindfully if you're not planning, because of how crazy the American food system is. If you're not planning, you're not going to be able to eat mindfully. So random grazing is a big issue. Just because consistent meal structure is simple doesn't mean that you should underestimate it or skip it. And then, of course, as your coach, I can't really move you towards the next thing. I really can't move you towards much at all if there's not a consistent foundation there. And you'll have a hard time being successful on your own if you're all over the place. Like when I get a client and they give me their food recall and it's all over the place, I have a hard time thinking, okay, what's our first step? If you're trying to control your weight in 8 years and your food is all over the place, like good luck. I'm not saying that in a negative way. It's just, it gives you so many more variables that you have to accomplish and account for, that it's not going to work. So again, if you guys work for 4 months at getting really consistent, at the end of that 4 months, you are consistent with your meal structure, that's a huge win. Number 2, eat enough. This is everybody's favorite. I definitely think most people don't have to diet the way they've done in the past. It's been harmful and kind of has hurt their relationship with food and has hurt their body and makes you feel like you're floundering. And so, let's leave that diet culture behind, but there's still a trade-off. You got to eat more. And a lot of people, that's not super fun, and it means you got to plan more. So it's just kind of pick your heart, I guess. The biggest thing with eat enough is make sure you're eating enough to sustain your activity level, your daily work, life, stress, exercise, all that stuff. Everything that you add on to your life is more energy that you're expending that you need to fuel. And if you are like most people, where you're tired throughout the day, the evening comes and you feel like you need to crash, that's not normal. That's not how your body's supposed to operate. And we're not eating enough when that happens. So, and this applies to you even if you've got a lot of weight to lose. If you've got a lot of weight to lose, but even more so, we need to create a baseline of a strong foundation from which you'll be able to lose sustainably. So most people aren't eating enough nutritious food to survive. So that gets us to whole foods. I ask people to do 85 to 90% whole foods. And then I actually want people to actually enjoy using that 10% on not the most nutrient dense foods. So that would be things like, I wouldn't even count dark chocolate in that. Dark chocolate, I would say, is almost like a whole food. That 10% is like, I ate a hot dog at the ball game, or I had pie after Thanksgiving. That 10% could be like a little bit of cereal in the morning on a day that you know you're going to do a hard workout. So enjoy that 10%, because perfection is unsustainable. So seriously, enjoy the 10%. But but don't hang out at 20-25%. Try to improve. 90% is a lot of hard work too. Any questions on that? Anybody does that make sense? I'm not you can never eat a Reese's peanut butter cup, but I probably am you can never eat 10 Reese's peanut butter cups. It does get hard when you're trying to do disease reversal. I'll just throw that out there. I had a couple of clients who I told for Thanksgiving, like, hey, you actually got to stay the course this year, just because your health is in a certain state. But for most people, 90% is still going to be a big improvement. Consume adequate protein. The biggest reason for that is the American diet is wildly underfed when it comes to protein. Does anybody know the stats that I said for the Lewis and Clark expedition? Because everybody, really, you want me to eat that much meat? I've said this before on a call, but Lewis and Clark, when they were on their expedition, they had a budget of the amount of meat they needed per person per day. Anybody know how big that serving was?
Mm-mm.
This is a super random trivia question, but Clark in his journal budgets in that for every person on their expedition, they had 9 pounds of meat per day.
Whoa.
So they literally were eating 9 pounds of red meat. Like, you would kill a deer and it'd be like, here, you take the whole leg. Now that's an extreme example, but humans we're omnivores, but we eat a lot of meat. And the American diet, it's not super abundant in that way. There are some people now that really are thinking that our ratio of fats, carbs, and alcohol protein is the number one thing that determines our body fat percentage. So fats, carbs, and alcohol would be just energy, and protein is like substance. So I don't advocate a high protein diet, but to almost everybody, it feels like this is a high protein diet. And this is a long-term shift that we're looking for. My goal for you is that in 3 years, you're going to be someone who prioritizes high quality proteins in their diet. When you go to Thanksgiving, that doesn't change. You enjoy Thanksgiving, but you build your plate based on the lean protein. When you're looking into your fridge, even on a busy weekend, and you're looking for something to eat, you're looking for protein. When you're going to go to a tailgate on Saturday morning, you recognize that you're about to step into 8 hours of a lot of fats, carbs, alcohol, very little protein. And so before you go, you're going to slam down a big protein shake and bring a yogurt with you. That's not the best option, but it's a good option if you're going to a tailgate. Number 5, dieting is a stressor. I have one client who I've been working with that we are about to hit our year marks together, and she just started her diet. And the reason for that is she had a little bit of body fat to lose, but she didn't have nearly as much body fat to lose as she was just going to benefit by building some muscle, rebuilding her bones. And so we just did a very, very slow, we doubled her intake over the course of 6 months and then held her there. She got really, really strong. And now we're dieting her. But for her health, for her long-term, it's not going to be helpful to just stress her system by dieting. She's much healthier now because we didn't diet. As a coach, I didn't that much in terms of I just said, hey, we're going to consistently eat more. We're going to restructure some of this stuff. But I didn't do tons of fiddling with her macros. Instead, we kept it really simple. But if you look at that over the course of a year, wow, we spent a year not dieting and it was really good for her. So it was a big investment that she made. I feel really, really good about where that relationship is, even though it doesn't look like a typical client path. For most people, I want you to think about 4 months out of every 9 to 12 months, you can have a really good, successful diet in. So maybe you work on 4 months building a robust metabolism, then do a 4-month diet, and then after that you do 4 to 5 more months at like a maintenance again. Where again, every time you're not dieting, you're still getting stronger, you're practicing all these behaviors, you're feeling better. Okay, any questions on these 5 principles?
I have a question on the last one you said about the diet being a stressor on your body.
Yep.
So you're saying like the Optavia was a real bad stressor on my body?
Absolutely. When you chronically underfeed, so I'll give you just like one example. A lot of people know that when you eat a bunch of sugar or a lot of carbs, just a lot of food, your insulin goes up. Your insulin goes up to help you store fat and distribute that energy. And so that's, you know, you could say chronically overeating bad food is a stressor too. But if you are chronically undereating, your body will actually produce a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. And think about it, if you are a primate or you're a huntingman in the plains, you know, of 10,000 years ago, and you're trying to hunt for food and you haven't eaten in 3 months, your stress hormones are going to be crazy high to help you have the energy to go kill something, or else you're going to starve to death, right? Is that going to make sense? So if you chronically undereat, a lot of people have chronically high stress levels, chronically weakening bones, wasting of muscle, loss of hair, loss of fingernails. Oh, and by the way, a digestion system that gets really screwed up. Your nervous system gets screwed. So it can show up anywhere. It can show up in almost any system of your body that you can have. There's just, depending on the person, that stress of over dieting shows up one place or another. Some people might have severe brain fog. Some people might have nausea when they go back to eating food. So yeah, so dieting is a stressor, meaning like if you're chronically under eating, that will affect the way your body works long term, and it's not good for your health. There's a group of people called the Carriot, I think. It's like a group of people that just advocate for calorie restriction. And they literally, all they do is they go to conferences and they just tell each other, eat less, eat less, eat less. And they score really well. They have low rates for diabetes and heart disease, but they have really poor health when it comes to bone structure, muscle structure, brain function. And actually, I listened to a doctor the other day. He went to one of those conferences, and everybody that went up and spoke said, we got to do exercise. And everybody was in the crowd was like, yeah, we know, but we're so tired. So if you aren't eating enough, you're just not going to work out well. And if you guys know how important exercise is, if you go 10 years and you don't have a good workout because you're not eating enough, that's really bad for your health. And so I'll have days where I do it less frequently now because I'm trying to practice what I preach. I'm doing pretty well with it. But if I've got a day where I'm going into the afternoon and I'm only eating 1,000 calories and it's my workout time, I'm just not going to get a good workout in. Now, if you do that every day for 3 years, you're like, you don't even realize it, but you're never getting a good workout in. So part of the reason why we feed you more is so that you can really capitalize on your exercise. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah, good. Yesterday, I way upped my food because I've been kind of under eating just for some other reasons. I got on the bike and did a cycle count. I felt like I could go for 4 hours, but that doesn't happen if you're not getting enough fuel. So we've talked about this daily meal structure. This should be pretty familiar. Eat enough nutrients. So we've talked about determining your calorie needs with the Harris Benedict, and then where those calories come from for short and long-term goals. That's like where I help as a coach. All right, quick question. What's healthier, the steak on the left or the spinach on the right?
The
Steak.
Okay, the steak. Why would you say the steak?
It's protein.
It's protein. Protein is a nutrient. There are way more nutrients in the steak than in the spinach. When I say way more, I mean like 50,000 times more. Now, you could take the argument to, by the way, most of the good stuff that spinach has, steak does have as well. But spinach doesn't really have protein, fats, or carbs, so it's not giving you any energy. Now you could take this argument too far, like a Twinkies have a ton of nutrients, but they're like toxic fats and sugar. But yeah, steak is if you have to pick between one thing you're going to eat for the rest of your life and you just eat spinach, you're going to die. But I say this, but if you think of like, Jennifer, you've got college age girls, the thing that people do is like, yeah, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to eat a salad. And they're eating 800 calories of salad every day and they feel terrible. And it's because they're not getting any nutrients. They're undernourished. Macronutrient review here. This is real quick, but remember, protein has 4 calories per gram. So if you eat 100 grams of protein, that's 400 calories. Fats have 9 calories per gram. If you eat 100 grams of fat, it's 900 calories. And then carbs are the same as protein. Protein are essential, meaning if you don't eat protein, you will die. It's building blocks of all your lean mass, muscle, bone, brain, liver, all your organs. That's where protein comes from. Fats are essential. Without it, you can't synthesize your hormones, particularly your mood and sex hormones, and it builds your brain. So if you don't get enough fat, you're going to die too. Carbs are not essential. You won't die if you don't get carbs, but they are your body's primary energy source, particularly for vigorous activity. So even though carbs aren't essential for most healthy people, excluding people with severe heart disease or diabetes, I actually think you're going to get your best workout if you've got carbs in your system. You're going to have your best muscle building effect with carbs in your system. So we're about to land the plane here. A long-term success plan for our people. We establish a firm foundation, both of habits and metabolic parameters. So you are participating in the behaviors that we know will make a difference. You know what you're eating. You know how much to eat. You're consistent with your meal structure. You're working out 3 times a week, all those things. Those happen first. The habits happen first. And then your metabolic numbers and you're eating enough food, all that stuff, that long-term foundation comes after it. And for me, not messing this up is just as important as getting it 100% right. So if we go a little bit slower in building you, like Jennifer Clay, you're a great example on this. We go a little bit slower in building a firm foundation, by a month and a half. But at the end of the day, you get to that firm foundation a month and a half slower. Man, I take that every time. For the same reason, if somebody says, hey, I think I'm ready to diet, but I'm not sure yet, might as well wait a month and then diet after that. Because if you miss it by a month, that's way better than going too early and then having to rebuild for a couple months on the other end or for a couple of years. So establish a foundation and don't mess it up. Then transform your body with fat loss. That's kind of what we call the diet phase. And then 3, reestablish a new baseline and prepare to repeat. So that's the simplest we can make it. Build your body, build some muscle, strengthen your bones, lose the fat, establish a baseline. And over the course of the next 4 months, with everybody, but with this group over the next 4 months, we're going to make sure that these 6 behaviors are the things that we really all need to be doing. And this looks really complicated, but if you actually, we can read through these together, but these are things that most of y'all are doing most of, and then all of us can improve a little bit better on. So this is just consistent meal structure, be compliant with your macro targets, walk more, strength train at least 3 times a week, consistent sleep schedule, learn from your mistakes and be grateful. If you can do these things and you can do them consistently, you are going to have a phenomenal experience, and your health in 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years is going to be so much better. So I'll send these out, and what I'll show you is the 4-month curriculum that I've written up focuses on all these habits. And so we'll dive into, and we'll hold you accountable to, are you being consistent with that meal structure? Are you getting enough nutrients and energy? All that kind of stuff. So any questions on this list or anything else that I said? This list seems...
I have to say that, I really struggled with my sleep.
Yeah.
Because of COVID, staying up late, sleeping in. And then when time came to start getting up, I couldn't because I couldn't get to sleep.
Mhm.
And, I've gone to a sleep doctor for years, but it was Andrew that got me on track. And that meant even on vacation, setting the alarm and getting up and not sleeping.
At what time, Kathy?
You said no later than 7. So I got up, and depending on a day of travel or not, between 6 and 7 every day.
Yeah. So you, and it took probably, we were probably looking at that, Kathy, for what, 3 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3, and I get a text, man, slept horrible again this week. And then 1 week I remember you turned everything in and it was like wake up time, 6 a.m., 6 a.m., 6:15, 6 a.m., 6, and it just, the switch flipped. So yeah, that's
I
a huge.
literally had to put the phone across the way, so I had to get up to go. And then the alarm is an annoying barking dog. So I have to get up to go shut that annoying barking dog off.
Yep. Well, that's been amazing to see, Kathy, and I feel it has made a huge difference. But the health outcomes that we're looking for will lag. They will come because you've done that. But the first huge win is that habit. So yeah, that's been amazing. Anybody else struggling with their consistent wake up time?
I am, for sure.
Yeah, Pam. I was hoping you were going to say something.
Yeah, oh yeah, because my body doesn't like it. I had 6 kids. I had to get up at 6:30 every
Mhm.
morning for a good portion of my life, and I hated every single day of it. And like yesterday, I had my COVID booster. So I went to bed reasonable about 11. I woke up this morning, it was 10:30.
Yeah.
And I feel great. I don't know why my body wants to sleep from like 5 a.m. to 9. That's my best sleep always. And it always has been. So I don't know how to, I guess I just need to bite the bullet and do what Kathy did.
Pam,
Pam, I hated it. I mean, when he told me to go to bed at the same time and get up at the same time, especially getting up at that same time, I hated it, but it's been well worth it. Now, 90% of the time, I wake up before the alarm goes off.
Well, that's encouraging because I don't do that. And it's encouraging to see somebody who is doing it, and it's a positive thing.
It has been.
Kathy,
Because I never feel like I get enough sleep.
yeah,
getting up early.
do your body rhythms feel like they're in sync when you get up at 6 o'clock? Has that changed?
It's definitely
Either.
Definitely. It's been, I'm getting the rest I need, and I'm ready to go to bed, sleep at 10 o'clock. And so my rhythm, once I started going to bed at the same time and getting up the same time, and he said, even if I couldn't get to sleep until 1 o'clock, to still get up at 6 o'clock. And I growled, but
I would. Yeah.
I did it, and my body got in sync. It's been awesome. And no TV in the bedroom, no TV in the bedroom.
And Kathy, you broke through to where you're not going to sleep at 1 anymore because your body's ready to go to sleep and so, hey, Pam, for you, you don't have to set it at 6 a.m. You might, there are people that are later waker uppers. And that's something that I've had to do for myself, Pam. I've always woken up early. When I was in the Guard or going for training, we'd wake up at 4:15.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice.
But I've always hated waking up early, and it literally makes me depressed. Like if I have a season where I'm waking up that early, I am literally like on some spectrum of like, I hate it. So I just have a consistent later wake up time. And so it's okay to have a consistent later wake up time. But you should have the same. And look, if you're sick, being sick is sometimes like, that's the exception. Like you get a booster shot and you're sick, like, okay, whatever. But next morning, say your wake up time's 8 o'clock, like that's totally normal. But yeah.
Well, I think 8 o'clock is reasonable. I'm glad. I thought you were suggesting that everybody ought to be getting up at 6 o'clock.
No.
It's dark.
Yeah. Not the time doesn't matter. The consistency does.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for that, Kathy. I appreciate that. All right, y'all. So y'all did pretty good on the quiz. I want y'all to go back and look at your Harris Benedict, look at the number that you put in and see like how far off you were. Run it based on light exercise and then run it based on like 3 times exercise a week. Here, I'll send it in the chat here. And
So
you'll,
ultimately, are you wanting us to be able to eat what that 22, 23 and still be not gaining weight, right? I mean, is that the intent?
that would be like a long-term goal. Now, you don't have to be perfect. Like, again, this is a guide, but it's not that far off. So for you, Jennifer, the best result, and you know, it might be a spectrum, you might not get the best result, but the best result would be, and look, a lot of times when you work with us, that's the first time you've ever consistently increased your intake. And so usually, you know, some people lose weight when they do that. Some people, their weight stays the same, but a lot of people gain a little bit of weight the first time they do that. But the goal is to increase your metabolic capacity. And yeah, that number is a pretty good baseline. So if we can get the
I
weight.
sort of thought that's where you're trying to get us to, where we can eat that much and not, you know, be getting huge and
Right.
feeling healthy and exercising. Okay.
Yes. And if you're eating that much, 85, 90% whole foods and feeling great, and I'm telling you, long-term weight loss and weight control will be that simple. It really will. But if you never bring up your capacity to there, you're always going to spin in the cycle of the 10 to 15, 10 to 15, you know, off and on, off and on. So now that number seems huge too, but if we get your hormones in line and your training in line, then that number will just at some point, you know, 2,400 calories, you actually can't eat that much, but you are not consistently eating that much. But your body should respond to that as we kind of build you a little bit better. And as you lose weight, your calorie demands are going to go down. So if you run your Harris Benedict where you are now, you might be at 24. If you run it down 15 pounds, you might be at 21 or 22.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the chat, the link to the Harris Benedict, if y'all want to go in there and kind of play with that and see how close or how far you were. Renee, that is a cute grandbaby. Oh, wait. I asked you to unmute. What'd you say?
I said she's eating broccoli, so she's setting a good example for me.
That's awesome. Now just have her eat some lean steak.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. Okay, anything else for me? Any comments, any questions? I thought this was a blast.
Sounds good.
Okay. I want the homework that I will give you, and I'm going to send this to everybody. So look at that Harris Benedict like you did. Only other piece of homework is I kind of want you to go through these behaviors and give yourself a little bit of a grade. Which of these are you currently doing? If you're not doing any, like if you're not doing one of these like at all, that's probably going to be our next to-do list. But you say, well, I've been strength training. I've really been doing it 1.5 times a week. Or, oh, I'm doing it 3 times a week, but I don't feel like I'm getting much out of it. Well, we can definitely improve that. So kind of give yourself a grade on these 6 things, send you an email there. And my goal is to help you prioritize and march through to do each of these. One that I'll highlight is 90% target compliance. Like as your coach, if I'm giving you a plan where we're going to increase your intake, then hold it steady, then diet you, we just really need to be on the same page. And things come up, but the more you're missing that, the more like I sort of get confused and we're not going to hit the timelines. So that 90% target compliance, especially if you've been working with us for a little bit, should begin to get easier as you plan ahead a little bit, as you learn your protein sources, you learn your carbs and fats. And at some, that really should be like, you know, like I've got clients that, you know, post 6 months, they literally turn in, they're within like 3%. And they're within 3%, not because they're being OCD, but just because it's easy for them. So I want to see that starting to get easy for y'all and see that be something that you learn to do. Because once you learn to do that again, you're going to be able to be your own coach for the rest of your life to some extent.
Will this be in an email so that we can see the questions?
Yes, I will copy and paste this into the email, and then I'll give you some of the considerations that I just said.
Okay.
Awesome. What I would like to do, I'll send this an email as well, but meet again, not next week, but the next week. So we'll do like every other week, we'll do a call like this that's a little bit focused. So that would be like December 21st. We can touch base right before we all get into Christmas. If you're out of town or something, yeah, that's fine, but let's be in touch on that. So I'll send that again in an email. If you got any other questions, you guys know where to find me.
Hey,
All
thanks.
right. Yep, absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yep. Talk to y'all soon.